Okay, and good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to permit me to stand on existing protocols. So welcome to this timely and highly impactful session on capital markets as engines of economic transformation. Indeed, the capital market plays a vital role in any thriving economy. They fuel innovation, support entrepreneurship, deepen financial inclusion, and indeed are instruments in mobilizing long-term capital and also sustainable development. Uh, so today we have very distinguished panelists and thought leaders on the panel, and we'll be engaging them. Where is the NGX Group CEO? Okay. All right, because he's meant to be on the panel, but he doesn't have a seat here. I wonder. Sorry, IK, if you don't mind, the NGX Group CEO. I believe he's meant to be on the panel, so I can't see any provision for him as well. All right. So we have very distinguished panelists here. I don't need to repeat their names. But while we're waiting for the Group CEO of NGX, let me face Mr. Bola Jamale, who is the Executive Commissioner at the Securities and Exchange Commission. And my question to him will be for him to tell us what specific initiatives or reforms the Securities and Exchange Commission is implementing to ease capital market access for Nigerian SMEs and startups, particularly in the light of, the listing requirements, the costs, and investor education that we find today.
Okay. Again, I'm not sure this mic is.
I think it's
the right
audible.
To use. Yes. I think we should just pass the mic around. Oh, can you hear me?
No, it's working.
I think it's working now. Okay. It takes a lag. Okay, so thanks. And, we are of the general belief and understanding that SMEs employ at least 80% of the young people in the country. I say we have the understanding because the data just isn't there as it should be. So one of the first things we're doing is trying to encourage the collation of data in an organized manner. We're reaching out to SMEDAN, for example, and working very, very closely with them to even assemble the data that allows us to know what sizes we're seeing. We're working with all the institutions that we can find, including LCC, and I'll tell you some of the initiatives we're doing with each one of them. But we're working with every single outlet that we see that has anything to do with small and medium-scale businesses. In fact, what we then did was created an office of small business advocacy in the SEC, and what that office does is it actually engages with the small businesses on their various platforms and sees what their problems are and tries to ease the problems, gives them advice as to how they can go about raising capital, and intercedes for them, especially with on the side of capital raise and interaction with institutions. Of course, many small businesses are not going to be going out to the banks first and foremost. They first of all be trying to organize themselves into cooperatives, and we're also supporting that. Again, another step we have taken is to encourage crowdfunding, especially for the agribusinesses. Registration of crowdfunding has gone on. We've got 6 crowdfunding intermediaries registered right now at the SEC. However, even though it's one thing to create the platforms and to create the opportunities, it's another thing for it to be subscribed. And what we have seen is even though we've created 6 crowdfunding intermediaries, we have not seen the activity that we thought we would see from those who are seeking capital. So again, there's a disconnect there that we're studying. We're working with IFC, AFDB, and other multilaterals to also build frameworks that will support the SMEs. So we're working in at various levels. Another thing that we think is a direct impact is working through the exchanges. Now, you mentioned the cost and the restrictions in the rules. What we have done is we have empowered the various exchanges to be able to create specialized growth-oriented boards that support smaller companies. At least the three major securities exchanges have each got boards that support growth companies, and we're encouraging that as well, listening, engaging, interacting with the various points to make sure we hear them and we keep our rules and regulations as not fluid, but keep them as open as possible to be able to accommodate the various interests.
Thank you very much. I like the part of engagements and interactions and also data gathering to be up to date. We'll come back to that. But let me move to Yamo. So Yamo, from your vantage point at Bamboo, how is technology practically lowering barriers to entry and reshaping how young and retail Africans engage with capital markets? And what behavioral shifts do you think are you seeing in this new wave of investors?
Okay. So morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for having me. That's an interesting question. I think if you even hear earlier from the speech that Mr. Agimekwede gave, that retail investors in general, the power of retail investors are growing. From Bamboo, we've observed that technology is significantly reducing the barriers to entry for young and retail investors in Africa. So at Bamboo, we focused on providing a very, very user-friendly experience. So right from being able to do KYC, get onboarded, start trading, open an investment account right from your phone, we've reduced a lot of the friction and a lot of the barriers to entry that previously existed for young investors. So what we've seen on Bamboo over the past 5 years is that over half of our investors are first-time investors, and over 80% of our investors are under 40. We've also seen a big shift towards like fractional investing and micro investing, especially over the past 3 years. So when we first started, our first crop of investors were probably the more what you would expect from, who wants to invest in the stock markets. But particularly over the last 3 years, we've seen a shift towards micro and fractional investing, showing that retail investors are getting more confident and are also trying to be more engaged, and there's a desire to learn. So you see people who we have a big education bit as a lot of the work we do. So you see people actually implementing the things that they've learned. And we focus on simplicity and education. So that empowers our users to actually make informed investment decisions. And so you then see a growing community of investors that are more engaged, more financially literate, and they're proactive. So that's actually a big thing. Young retail investors now are a lot more proactive at trying to manage their portfolios. They're actually tracking, trying to stay abreast of the situation. And this trend indicates positive transformation, I believe, in how young Africans are perceiving the markets and how much they're willing to participate in the markets, which is a positive indication for long-term growth.
Thank you very much. Let me move to Miguel. So as someone who works in the intersection of global capital systems, where do you see the most pressing infrastructure gaps in African markets? And which upgrades would most accelerate efficiency, trust, and cross-border investment flows, in your view?
Okay. First of all, I think officially good afternoon, everyone. So it's a pleasure for me to be here, and really thankful with AMEDA and CSCS. So going back to the question, maybe before we get into the details of what's missing from a regional perspective, I think it's quite relevant what it's happened first of all locally. Locally, from our point of view, again, we are solution providers, so we are helping different sectors and industries into the capital markets area. But as it was mentioned, for instance, for Bamboo, bringing those user experience capabilities to retail side and so on. So that's quite relevant. That's something that we see all across Africa. There are now new initiatives, again, either driven by fintechs or even directly could be by stock exchanges or well-known brokers or dealers and so on. So basically, now that's something that it's quite relevant and it's having a lot of traction. But in the end, I think it was said today. One of the keynote speakers mentioned today that at some point, okay, that's the trading side. Okay, I can buy, sell, which I would say that nowadays, especially post crypto frenzy, let's say, everybody kind of know, okay, you can buy and sell, and then you know that at some point you will get the something in your account. Maybe you can see something there. But a lot of people don't necessarily know or care what's happening behind the scenes. And it was interesting, the word that it was used today. It was that magic, okay? So when we are talking about, and I find it quite interesting because even for the future now I'm thinking, because I've been trying to explain certain even colleagues, friends, okay, what do you do on the post trade? And now I have a nice word. It will be that magic that it's happening. And indeed, it's quite hard to understand all the different steps. And of course, we have risks. We have it's not only about settlement. We have clearing and all the different partners. So definitely there's a lot of need of collaboration to make sure that all those players, including the regulator, because if the regulator, I know, again, I've been to several conferences where everybody blames the regulator. so it's good to have you here. But in some cases for the regulator as well, they don't necessarily want to close all the doors too tight so nobody can enter. They need to leave some, but whenever they leave it too open, then they will complain, oh, but who's taking control and who's giving that assurance that things are moving properly. So and now going back again to the question regarding what are the main trends, and especially regionally, again, it's interoperability. Because when we are talking about integration, there's a lot of need. And unfortunately, I wouldn't say necessarily even regionally, but locally. Even within certain markets, there's still a lack of STP. By that, I mean the straight-through processing, the direct communication between the applications. And even if that's in place, there's a problem actually defining the details of, okay, what standard are we using, how do we communicate, and so on. So I think the interoperability is one of the key elements.
Interoperability, that's key. Thank you, Miguel. Can we move to Dr. Arikan, the CEO of MKK? Dr. Arikan is on the screen, joining us from Turkey. Dr. Arikan, can you hear me very well?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, so Turkey has made significant progress in using its central securities depository to drive transparency, investor confidence, investor trust, and market participation. So what specific strategies or technologies were more or most instrumental, and how did they support access for retail and institutional investors alike?
Okay. Thanks a lot for this question. First of all, hi to everyone, and please accept my excuse not to be there. Actually, I was planning physically to attend this beautiful organization actually in Nigeria, but tomorrow we will have the general meeting of the MKK. Unfortunately,
Dr. Arikan, hold on a second. Can you please help the multimedia team? Can you please help maybe fine-tune the audio so that we can hear Dr. Arikan clearly?
By the way, I can talk a bit slowly if there's a problem there.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Slightly better, I think. So you can go ahead, please.
Okay, first of all, hi to everyone, and please accept my apologies because actually I was planning to attend the organization physically in Nigeria, but unfortunately we changed our plan after some extraordinary things. Tomorrow we will have the company general meeting in Istanbul, in the general meeting of MKK, and unfortunately I lost my father just 2-3 weeks ago, and I couldn't attend and travel to Nigeria for this beautiful organization. Sorry for that, first of all. For your question, actually, I think I should firstly emphasize our approach, the new approach as a CSD company of Turkey. We are doing lots of things other than regular, normal CSD business. We are grouping four kind of services under CSD, under MKK. One is, of course, the first one is, of course, the most important and the core business of CSD business, the depository services. Actually, we are giving this service not only for capital markets, also we are also serving for product markets, for crowdfunding platforms, and even we will have another new responsibility for crypto assets. And the second one is actually data services. Data monetization and data services are really very important for all our business because, as all of us know, the data is the new petrol or diamond. We need to process it, use it, report it, and somehow we should utilize it for different kind of needs, for risk management, or that kind of critical financial services, actually. And we are producing new innovative data services and products for all kind of financial institutions, for regulators, for ministries. And the third one is actually the corporate governance services for us. And we are producing new products and services for corporate governance services, for corporate governance needs of companies and the markets. Like transparency platform, the public disclosure platform, for example, and for general meeting solution and the board meeting solution. We are grouping all these kind of things under corporate governance services. And the fourth one is investor services. Of course, we are doing lots of things for investors, but we are receiving it as a separate service kind. We are producing some investor products. For example, we have an e-investor solution. All investors can find all their registries under that product in capital markets, in product markets, in crowdfunding system, and all other registries.
Okay.
Thank you,
Dr. Arikan.
I just want to add just 2 sentences. Since we are keeping all the data investor-based, actually, we are using all these products to increase the market transparency, market accessibility with all data services to all the companies, to all investors, and to all market actors, actually. And I can give another example also for example, for the general meeting solution. All local and international investors can access even to general meetings, and we implemented it for even for other countries' markets and OECD.
Dr. Arikan, thank you for your time.
Okay.
We have to. We'll still come back to you. We still have a couple more questions for you. Thank you for the insights you shared on how Turkey is advancing using its central securities depository. Let me go back to Yamo. And again, it will be good to learn more about, what those specific regulatory reforms would be, or market infrastructure improvements or cross-border frameworks that would enable platforms like Bamboo to scale responsibly while still protecting investor interests, investor trust, and protecting and maintaining investor trust.
Okay.
Did you get the question?
Yeah, I think so. So tell me if I'm off. But yeah, generally, I think it's generally acknowledged that rapid fintech advancement generally demands equally agile regulation to make sure that investors are protected while also, fostering growth. Like my co-panelist said, yes, the regulators should tighten up, but also tight that, growth doesn't happen and innovation can happen. So to scale responsibly and maintain investor trust, generally I think the markets would benefit from regulatory reforms that promote transparency and collaboration. Because it's always helpful to understand exactly what is the regulation, what needs to be happening, know what the rules are. I always say that regulators put guardrails on innovation. So yes, grow, but grow responsibly. So clear guidelines for fintech operations and also fostering open communication between the both regulators and industry players will generally create a more conducive environment for growth. So we've seen the 2025 ISA has recently introduced vital reforms and has included platforms dealing in virtual assets. So we're seeing the SECs move towards more growth and more innovation and signaling a proactive regulatory environment to modernize our current regulatory framework. Looking at platforms like that, Bamboo specifically, reforms around cross-border frameworks to harmonize regulations across Africa. So, in somewhere like Bamboo, we're currently in Nigeria, we're in Ghana, we're in South Africa, we're in Kenya. It would be great if there was some sort of harmony among, what the required, even just KYC, in all the different markets are just to help scalability. But generally, cross-border frameworks that harmonize regulation across African countries would help us scale and offer our services much quicker to a wider pool of investors. So I know the government is currently looking at the AFCFTA, and if there are ways to, use AFCFTA aligned KYC and AML standards, for example, to extend across the market and keep protections uniform across these markets. And that would then enable us to open investments up to various African countries, like I just said, we're in Nigeria, even just across Nigeria and Ghana. Today, it's not quite easy and scalable for us to get our Ghanaian investors investing in Nigeria or vice versa. How do we make that much more seamless and much easier? So, from payments to KYC, just clearer regulations, flexible innovation channels, and regional cooperation are essential for us to scale rapidly and seamlessly while also protecting regulators.
Thank you very much, Yamo. I think the salient point, there needs to be flexibility and frameworks and regulations that help cross-border dealings, Nigeria, Ghana, including payment-related infrastructure and policies, would help scalability as it relates to businesses like Bamboo. So let me go back to our regulator, Mr. Bola Jomale. How is SEC working to deepen investor confidence and expand market participation through innovative instruments like green bonds, fintech, and what are those milestones that have been achieved so far?
Okay, so there are a couple of questions in there. But first of all, first point of contact is actually creating confidence in the system itself. And you can only do that really by properly dimensioning. You can do that by working, and just to quickly speak to your point about regulators collaborating, even if you are going to have cross-border collaboration, it tends to be diminished a bit, or the effect of it tends to be diminished a bit if you don't have consistency, even among the regulators in your own economy. So that's the first point of contact that we have and our first focus. Not necessarily identifying a particular country where we want to have, and I know I heard you speak a lot about Ghana. Rather than looking directly at Ghana, what we should do is create an atmosphere and an environment where people can see Nigeria as one, and you hit the rules of Nigeria. And I think NNPC is doing a wonderful job in coalescing all the rules that exist in the financial system in Nigeria, making sure they're consistent, and then you can present that as one. So that tends to make the space a lot easier. Regarding investor confidence, a confident investor is one who is enlightened, quite frankly. If you're not enlightened, you're not a confident investor, you're a gambler. And I'm putting it as bluntly as possible. You need to find out what you're doing with your money. You need to find out where your money is going. If you do not, then what you're doing essentially is you're tossing it in a bucket and hoping that it comes back bigger than what you put in. So what we try to do is increase investor awareness. We try to educate, we support. We have a huge budget for market development and education, for example. We collaborate, and in most conferences, especially where we know there are gatherings of people, what we do is we also have investor clinics where we actually showcase our operators, especially the fund managers, who are working very hard to build collective investment schemes, our brokers, who are the intermediaries, the main intermediaries with retail investors, and the registrars, who really are also a direct point of contact for the traditional instruments. We try to bring them together into the conference, make sure they have stalls where they can actually interact with the public. Indeed, I mentioned that the DG is out. He wasn't able to come today. That's because he's actually educating some women in Abuja at the moment. And that's how we prioritize building knowledge, building capacity among even the investors. Now, second side to it is then to show that there's sanctions for those who are even offending. We have gone after quite a few. In the ISA, for example, we've got a rule there that sets a certain penalty, financial, and a 10-year jail term. It's now a criminal offense for you to actually defraud on the capital market. So we're continuing to build the structures that make it more costly or more punitive for you to chip away at the integrity of the market. At the same time, we're building confidence among the operators by telling them that we're listening, we're working closely with them, and if they do have any issue that they want sorted out, they can approach the SEC. There was a time when we could say that if you had an innovation or a new idea, if you took it into the SEC, it would take a certain amount of time. We have actually been extremely deliberate about reducing that time for which we consider new ideas. So what that does is it has brought up, in fact, some people have rethought ideas they brought in maybe 3 or 4 years ago, rehashed them, brought them back in, and they've received a response within a couple of weeks. So we're actually extremely quick about our responses to operators now, and that has encouraged more innovation in the market. So
Thank you.
I hope I've addressed both questions.
Yeah, you have a lot of investor sensitization clinics, and I think I like the ISA angle where you've made provisions, penalties indeed, punitive measures for defaulters or people that fall foul to the law. Let me move to Miguel. How can innovation in private market infrastructure, such as digital registries, real-time settlement systems, or blockchain solutions, help to modernize public markets in Africa and address legacy system challenges based on your experience?
Sure. So when we are talking about technology, I know that, well, it's now that buzzword anymore. We're talking sometimes blockchain. We know that especially with Bitcoin, it became like a really interesting for everyone, and then now it's how we can use it. But before actually we can focus in technologies, or either it's legacy or traditional or blockchain. I think it's focusing on the model. What are we trying to do with the technology? Because that's the key element. Like for instance, from Babu, it was clear. Okay, we are having challenges trying for an investor in Ghana to do some investment in Nigeria or Kenya. So we need to identify those challenges, and then from a solution provider point of view, it's not necessarily what technology should be used. There are many options how to bridge that, but of course, there are limitations at regulation. I agree there's a lot of harmonization issues, because even if you want to do KYC, what if you have to do KYC here, or in Kenya, or in Nigeria, or South Africa? They have, each one of them have different rules, and so on and so forth. And with that in mind, once we look at what are the challenges and what are the opportunities, not only for the investors, but also for the market players, then we can bring those advantages. Because I can tell you, when we are talking, you were mentioning real-time payments. Now we can definitely see the experience, for instance, in India with UPI. Some of you may have known that. Or there's Brazil, there's another instant payment solution that basically it's all across the market, and now you can go and buy one candy for directly using your mobile payment and so on. So that's something that will continue to grow, and based on that need, that now investors, not only investors, but the retail side would need real-time access. We need the financial market infrastructures to come together and say, okay, how we can facilitate that, how we can make that growth happen. We were talking, even the topic, it's shaping the future. So how does the future look? We should ask that question. And even yesterday, I think some people did the tour at the museum, and I found it interesting. Unfortunately, I didn't join, but there's like the past, the present, and the future. So the idea is that we should focus on that future and see how we can get and address those issues that are present in the market.
All right, thank you very much, Miguel. I'll move to, I have one more question for Dr. Ekran. And Dr. Erikan, based on your experience modernizing Turkey's market infrastructure, what practical steps can African markets take to leapfrog our legacy systems, and how can technology be used to build trust, reduce costs, and expand the level of participation?
Okay. Thanks for the question. Actually, we think that one of the most important needs is the capacity for financial technology development for CSDs. I think, first of all, we should have a really very good capacity for financial technology development, for innovation, as all the participants told. Innovation is very important in our business. We should diversify different kind of financial assets, and of course the company side, the IPO number of IPOs should be more efficient, and the number of public companies should be increased in our markets. And the transparency, again, like the public disclosure platform, or like the general meeting solutions, all the investors and also companies should be connected well. The transparency for local customers, for local investors, and also for international investors are also very important, of course. And data, again, actually sharing the data about the markets, about the companies is very important. In Turkey, I can share also some numbers. Just 15 years ago, almost there was 1% of the population, the registered investors, but now it's almost 10% of the population is, I mean, not, by the way, I should correct, not registered, but with balance. Now we have increased from 1% to 10% of the population. Almost they are active investors of the capital markets. It's really very good development to increase these numbers. Of course, the market should be transparent, accessible, both for companies and also investors, and both for local and international investors, of course. We are, and of course, another collaboration point is not just for local, also for other international infrastructural companies. We are trying to collaborate and reach our markets with other countries also. Because CSDs are not just local companies, we are financial infrastructure companies. We should integrate our markets with other countries. We should develop technologies not from the software point of view, but also from infrastructural point of view. And we should develop both financial diversification with technological diversification of the solutions. As Turkish case, actually, we are just in the middle of lots of countries.
Thank you, Dr. Arik, and we're actually, we've run out of time. I'd like to take one question from the audience, just one. And then we'll take final comments from our panelists. I have the gentleman with his hands up. Could you please share the microphone with him? Anyone, please, can help. I'm also mindful of time. We have less than 5 minutes left.
Thanks very much. I'll make it very quick. But I need to ask this question. It's one of the reasons I came here. We've been talking about integration. Sorry, my name is Biodun Adebimpe from Rand Merchant Bank. Then interoperability. Talking about how do we integrate even FMIs locally. I know that the SEC has done some fantastic work in terms of putting out guidelines. We've had engagement. I belong to a trade group that's had engagement with some of the FMIs that say we are ready. We can plug and play with other FMIs so that we can have a connected market. But as we speak today, it's still not happening. And I'm putting it to the SEC, is it enforcement that is the issue? Or is it that the FMIs are truly not ready to interoperate? I think that's the other part of one question, but the other part is now regional, going across Nigeria. What roles are the CSDs playing in the PAPS, the Pan-African payment and settlement system? I know the central banks have been driving it. We're talking of AELP. You know, we still struggle to settle across, markets because we still don't have a single eco currency, or what do you call it? How do we accelerate, all those efforts? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's deal with the first question.
The first question was to understand. We've created the platform, but the various
Integration platform.
institutions have not integrated. I think you should ask the institutions. And it's certainly not an enforcement issue. You don't force parties to come together. You create the framework for which they would operate. Tell them it's now available. Let them know that they can. But then again, it's a business decision as to whether they do or they don't. If you do insist as a regulator that businesses should be run in this manner, then you might as well stop being a regulator and go and run the business. So what we have done at the SEC is we have created the atmosphere. We've said it is acceptable. We've asked for rules to be presented. And the way it works is the operators, FMIs will bring their rules. It comes up to the SEC. We review it, and once we're convinced, or once we don't see any issues of concern or conflict with the established regulation, we would issue our no objection. To date, we have not seen any. Maybe the FMIs are working on it. And when we do, we shall treat it as soon as it comes.
Miguel?
Well, when it comes, I think that there are several aspects to see. First of all, has to do with the unfortunate technology, in a sense that we need to have modern technology for integrate and to make sure that we have that all the different layers all together. However, it has to do also with standards. Standards in a sense that you need harmonization, and you need to make sure that you're using international standards. But from my experience, every time that we go, and we've done several projects, not only here in Africa, but around the world, and it usually, okay, yes, that's the standard, but, and there's when actually the business starts. So we need to make sure that the regulator is also on board to make sure that that happens. And I think that, I'm not saying that the FMIs are not ready, or the CSDs, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But something that I found yesterday interesting about discussing quickly with Jallo, and he was mentioning that in the end we need to find those synergies where we know that there's no competition. Because as soon as there's some competition, someone is losing or winning out of an interconnection, for sure that won't work. However, that's where the CSDs are the perfect ground to build those bridges. Because yeah, you mentioned the African linkage project for the stock exchanges, but everybody knows that, okay, it's a matter of liquidity, and if you link exchanges, okay, where is the liquidity going to go from the local market? So there might be some things going around. And again, I'm not there, I'm just giving my little thought in there. But however, at CSD, if I know that I can buy something here and it needs to go directly at the post-trade level, then it might be simpler. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity there, and there's way to make it happen.
Thank you very much, Miguel. At this point, I'd like to get final comments, parting comments from my panelists. I'll start with Yamo to go first.
Okay, I mean, thanks for having us, and thanks for moderating. I think, final comments are, we can all agree that a well-functioning capital market is the engine, let's say, for, economic growth. And I think it's important for everyone to think about technology as a partner in that. Technology, if a well-functioning capital market is the engine, then technology is a turbocharger that can help supercharge that growth. And so if regulated exchanges, technology platforms like us can work together to create scalable rails from KYC to payments, then there's a big opportunity to get, idle savings into MSMEs and really, into MSMEs industry and really help grow and turbocharge the economy. Yeah. We've seen this happen in various economies globally, and, Bamboo remains ready to be a partner to, both the regulators and other businesses and players in industry in this space as we work together to grow economies across Africa and the Middle East. So thanks for having us, and thanks for organizing this.
Nice having you here. Mr. Bola Jamali.
Well, technology continues to enable, the future is technology, yes, we agree. It continues to enable greater reach, more sophisticated instruments, faster mobilizations. Regulators are challenged to keep pace and even stay ahead to make sure the environment is correct to support. The challenge is, however, because there's a greater reach, then you have more investors that are being touched. It also means that people can come up with illegal platforms. We've just gone through that in Nigeria. They are springing up every single second. And so even as every single platform is coming up with its technology and deploying it with a massive outreach seeking to bring in more people, there should always be an investor education segment, which would at least build confidence among the investors. And that's what I would continue to appeal.
Technology plus investor education.
Well, educate the investors.
Miguel, over to you.
Indeed, technology, it's important. Technology is important, but before getting into technology, we need to look into the goal. What's the goal? Because I've seen so many panels and been so many conferences where, okay, let's talk about blockchain, and nowadays it's okay, blockchain and AI, and for sure there will be a panel that will touch on that. There's usually on every conference now there are 3 main topics: blockchain, AI, and Trump. We managed to not to touch the last of them, but still, when it's, I think that from a market infrastructure point of view, the idea is to make sure that we have a goal in mind. What do we want to achieve? What is the challenge? What is the problem there? Because we just discussed one of them. Okay, what about KYC, or what about facilitating the investment across the different countries and so on? And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because if we go a bit farther, okay, what about those countries that have omnibus account schemas? What about those that work at beneficial owner level? What if we go into this collateral side? What if we think about the CCPs, margins? So the list goes on and on. But the idea is to make sure that we use these forums, these discussions to, okay, let's focus on a goal and let's try to achieve it one at a time, because we may be talking the same thing here in, I don't know, 20 years again, but ideally it's to make sure that we keep moving based on goals rather than, okay, what technology can we use? It's more like, okay, let's put a goal, and then we bring together different vendors. Montron is one of them, but there are different vendors that we can facilitate and, again, make that happen.
Thank you, Miguel. Dr. Arikan, are you still online?
Yeah, yes, I'm here.
Your parting words, please, in 1 minute, if you don't mind.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Actually, yes, we are having a much more importance as infrastructure companies, post-trade companies, and also the importance of B2B business. We are having much more importance as CST companies for the markets. I think we should we will be having much more importance maybe next years. We should be keeping in touch altogether with other parties and market actors with other countries, with other local partners. And as I told, actually, we should integrate, innovate, and collaborate our business with other parties. I can simply summarize it so. And again, thanks a lot for giving this opportunity to me. And I wish my all success wishes to everybody there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'd like us to give our panelists a round of applause. Let's continue to build very innovative, very transformative, transparent capital markets across Africa and through AMEDA and CSCS. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together as well for our moderator, Mr. Damilola Aloba. Very kind of you to exclude yourself there, but we must include you in the round of applause. Thank you very much as well to our panel, very estimable panel. Dr. Ekram Arikan, thank you so much. Mr. Bola Jomale, thank you. Ms. Yanmo Omorigbe.